Not much better than sitting in the truck with the radio on, listening to a homecoming football game this time of the year, or actually being able to visit friends and classmates, get back in the stands, and support a local football team. A couple of things that relates to this time of the year is not only football, friendship, but also whitetails. Not many people make the connection with homecoming, football, and whitetails, but we're here to tell you, I'm here to tell you that it is one of the biggest keys that you can, one of the biggest successful keys that you can implement into your fall strategy, especially going into the middle of October, planning for the end of October, planning for that movement when the whitetails return home like they do each and every year. And if you go back and start putting the pieces of the puzzle together from years past, you will see, it will shock you how much this shines through. Now, if you're in my shoes, such as this year, just purchased a new property, and we don't have that connection, or we don't have that history with the past deer movement. We don't have past history with the bucks that were here last year. It's a game that has to start somewhere, right? Before we can get a total yardage, at the finish of a football game, we have to have the kickoff, and that's kind of what we are looking at right now. It's something that once you experience this connection, it's something that it's kind of it's kind of catchy, it's kind of adds to the passion. It's something that I look forward to every year, connecting deer that were moving through the area last year and felt comfortable to what your improvements that you did, or just the terrain itself, and then being able to welcome them back this time of the year. So what does it mean? How do we react to it? How do we hunt it? So all very good questions. Once you have the intel, once you have that history built with not only the specific buck, which we're going to talk about, but the specific buck, but also the herd. Once you have that history, that past history with the herd, you're able to focus on the do's and the don'ts coming towards the end of October. The reason that we're doing this right now is to give you a couple of weeks advance notice, so you can start this with last year's information that you gathered through the scouting from the truck, cell cameras, trail cameras in general, and putting all that into implementing that into a strategy going into, like I said here, the end of the month. So what I always do is I always recommend, I always have my game face on going into the middle of October. Now, obviously, the further south you go, the further you back this out. So on the heading of this, the picture here on this video, I have a few dates that jump out to me. October 27th is the reason that I'm prepping for this on the 15th, is making sure that I'm not invasive, I'm not going in, I'm not blowing these situations out, because I have history with multiple deer from the state of Michigan, from the state of Illinois, that I could go back and tell you some great history and some great, I'll show you some pictures here of a buck for the last 2 years in the state of Michigan that we were on, and that's now a 5.5-year-old, and you can bet your bottom dollar that someone will be in that stand October 27th this year chasing that critter. Maybe it will be me, maybe it's a good friend of mine, maybe it's my son, but one of us will be there. The other date that I like is November 3rd. November 3rd is a date that stands out to me, going back to the days of guiding down in Illinois. A lot of big deer have fallen on November 3rd. November 11th is a big day. So many days that jump out. Obviously, I've been asked, well, why not November 15th? Well, that's a given. You throw, being from the state of Michigan, you throw a bunch of rifle and a bunch of the Orange Army in the woods, and there's a bunch of stuff that dies on the 15th. That's a given. But as far as coming home and connecting here to this video, those dates are some that jump out to me. Each farm, each area, each community will have those specific dates. The more you get familiar with those dates, the more that you can make this, like I said, you can implement this into your arsenal. So so that's what it means. They actually return home back to their ways, or the ways of the woods that they were last year. Very few years, unless something drastically changes, unless a herd goes through a massive devastation as far as health issues, or there is a large tract of land that's sold, or a fire that comes in, or something drastically changes, you can bet that you're going to see those deer return to their fall ranges. So this year, what we have going into a new farm, like we said, we don't have that past history. So this year we are starting this. Now, I have got, a pretty good relationship with my neighbors, and there's some of these deer that obviously we know that I've got here now that were here last year. I've got connection with the past owner on the property, and where some of my stands are on this property. There's been some good deer killed, or not too far from where I've got stuff set up. So you can see this connection, and it gives you an opportunity to counter on great fall movement. So in the football world, that would be like a recruiter, a scouting tool, a recruitment. You know, time and time again, many years in a row, maybe some good athletes come from the same school, kind of the same deal. It's just something to keep your eye on, and if you're a good recruiter, you're also a good scouter. Well, if you tie that to the whitetail woods, there's a lot of connection there. So they will return. Why do they return, and when do they return? So a couple things there. One, this year, I just had a buck show up here on the so short term here. I just short history, I guess I should say, is I just had a buck show up here back on the farm a couple days ago that was here and running with another buck that he was with in June and July. Both of them left the same week, and I kind of made a mental note of that. And wouldn't you know, one of them showed up a few days ago. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'll show you the pictures here. It was the 5th, I believe. One showed up at 2 o'clock in the morning on one licking branch, and moved his way on towards the next. I'm sure I got him at other licking branches because of the direction that he was headed. And at 5 o'clock, guess who showed up? The buck that he was running with, the more mature buck. We believe he's a 3.5-year-old, but he may be 4.5. We're gonna set eyeballs on him. He's one of the ones that could throw you a curve. But so they returned. So I'm almost willing to bet you that if I would have had intel on those bucks last year, they would have probably been here in June. They would have left, and they would be back here coming home the first week of October. A lot of power there in that knowledge. So how do you react to it? So now we've got the scouting mission done. We've got the history. We've got the scouting. We've got the recruitment done. Where does that leave us? Where does that leave us with the preparation of sealing the deal on one of these bucks? The more mature that these bucks get, the history that you have, and you start focusing, and like, to me, it's kind of a passion, and we get hooked on it. I get like tunnel vision, if you will, on focusing in on certain critters that return every year. It's a year. You're advancing them. So obviously, if you're getting them in the summer, you know they made it through the year. So it's a real good feeling knowing that what are they going to turn into, like these bucks here that I'm speaking of that left in June and July when they were halfway through their velvet growth, and come back, and I'll show you what what one of them exploded into. And like we said, if he's a 3.5-year-old, he'll get a pass. If he's a 4.5-year-old, he's probably going to get harvested. So he's inch wise, he's probably 130-inch deer. As we've said before, we're not the tape guys. I'm an age guy. So if he makes it through, if we elect to pass him, we're going to take this intel into next year. We're going to be in them same locations on the same winds, and we're going to go after him. So historical information, you tie historical wind and weather to that, and that is when you can make these connections on these homecoming deer. Weather Underground, and we're going to have multiple other videos coming through the rest of the fall here. They're going to tie to these same things about these tools, but Weather Underground is one of your best friends this time of the year. Take that Weather Underground, go in there, and go down through through the icons or the menu, find historical weather, go back and look at those dates, just like I have done for October 27th last year. I went back and made sure, and those are the winds, and that is the weather that we are looking for going into this October 27th. So, like I was saying, the older that they get, the more the mature the bucks get. A lot of times what you'll see is all of a sudden he does it at 3, he does it at 4, and at year 5, between 5, if you're in one of those states that can advance these deer into those 5 and 6-year-old age structure, what you'll find, and take my word for this, because you'll find is if you start researching this, what'll happen is all of a sudden these deer switch from, it's not like a light switch, it's just a slow turn back. They will start frequenting this homecoming date earlier. So the other ones, you can almost set your watch on it. Like I said, these bucks here that we're speaking of, and we're just using these ones as examples, but these bucks here that returned on the 5th of October, if I'd have had intel, like I said, to go back, I would guarantee you that they returned somewhere between a day or two back here on the farm within days, within hours last year. But with a mature deer, to finish that note, so with the mature deer, you will see that they start coming home. So instead of like these bucks coming home October 5th, or the buck that we're after in Michigan for the 27th, or them November 3rd or November bucks in Illinois, the situation will advance. They start coming back 3, 4, 5 days a week earlier than what they have continuously over the years. Now, we're not talking, obviously it's a whitetail world, we're not talking about 10 years of information. You're talking about 2 or 3 years of information. So you have to prepare yourself to jump on that movement and react and be prepared for it. Like I said, there's all kinds of ways, but the historical weather and chart, so you can look back on wind and weather, on historical weather, on Weather Underground, is the finishing touch to make this homecoming, to kick the final field goal, if you will, to put that last touchdown in the end zone on homecoming. So that is the way that you seal the deal on them. You prepare for it, you look back, and you make sure that those dates are etched in your memory and they are taking into advancement, and you're prepared for it going into the rest of the season, or getting ready for those dates. Just remember, the older that they get, the sooner that you'll see them start frequenting back in there. The best place to be, the best strategy to have, is to have, like I said, that weather and that wind figured out, know within days of when he's going to be returning, and have those licking branches in the spots prepared as they were before. So you have a couple different aspects on this. You have deer bucks that are here like in the summer on your properties that you'll see, and you'll get good summer pictures of them, and all of a sudden they leave and they're gone until October, November. On the other hand, you've got deer that are here in the only in the fall, that you don't get the pictures of it, that don't hang out on your property in the summer, and that's okay, because it's probably overloaded with does in the summer. And then when everything, that switch happens and things, the mature and immature bucks kind of take their hold with the doe placement hopefully closest to your feed, they leave holes, and that's okay for them to return only in the fall. So the idea is like I said, to have those licking branches, have them information stations, have the cameras, have your stands, have everything prepared. Your whitetail season starts now, and that's the reason why, is because you have to gather this information, take that information into the habitat season, into the winter months, through all the way through to the summer, and correct them things. Put that debris down where you're trying to steer them in, open those transitions, give them some edge to follow, screen them food plots in, all of that stuff that comes into it, because you have this intel that you can go back, and you have this stage is ready for these bucks to come home and enjoy their homecoming. And it's something they look forward to, because they know the information. If your habitat is correct or near correct, they'll come back, they'll transition back. If you get this pattern, so you get this homecoming pattern year after year after year, you know that your habitat, if not perfect, it's correct, or it's close to getting you towards correct. So take that as a pat on the back. If you're one of those properties, and I'm just lucky enough that I bought this at the time, this property here in Kentucky, that I bought this here at the right time, that a bunch of logging was done 7 to 10 years ago, and that I'm hunting the density, that stem count that is perfect for whitetail habitat. If you're one of the folks that you can see through your timber, and you don't, if you got a lot of TSI, that's on your property right now, and it's not driven towards whitetail, whitetail properties, if you will, make sure that you take this information, carry it into next year, so you too can experience the Whitetail Homecoming.